Thank you for giving us excellent presentation. We would like to call upon our next speaker, Mr. Ajey Lele, Wing Commander, IDSA, to give a presentation on cyber threats and national security. Wing Commander Ajey Lele is a research fellow at the Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, New Delhi. His area of research includes weapons of mass destruction and strategic technologies. I would like to invite him.
Can you give me the pointer? Slide. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first start thanking the organizers for inviting me over here. In fact, since yesterday, you people have been listening to very interesting talks on range of activities, right from cloud to power to energy to various other issues. One thing which is very common in this, which I found, was that everybody is trying to offer a solution. That means everybody knows what is the problem, and then there is a solution which is been offered. The only difference between what you people are listening and what you people are habitual to listen in your day-to-day life, particularly in a professional life, is not what I am going to talk. I am not going to talk of a solution, but I am going to talk about a problem. And that's what today's my job is, and where I will be discussing about cyber threats at the larger rubric of national security. Now let me first start by giving a very simplistic definition of what a cyber security from a standard business model point of view. From a standard business model point of view, what one can say is that it is a security which has been provided at various levels, and what essentially you are looking for solutions which have been offered by the company. So far so good. These things keep on happening, we do get solutions. But what I am going to do now is that to talk on a slightly different issue and try to say that what you people are doing is at a pretty mundane level, and what I am talking is at a very higher pedestal. But at end of my talk, you will realize that I will have to come back to you, even though talking big, that please offer me a solution. So somewhere the cycle is going to get complete. So since I am going to contextualize cyber security at the backdrop of national security, or a cyber threats or a cyber challenges at the backdrop of national security, let me first try to contextualize what national security is all about. You all know that for survival of any country, for survival of a state, you require various tenets based on which the survival of the state depends. We all have seen during Cold War era, particularly how the USSR got disintegrated. We all know that only military power alone cannot allow a state to survive. You require various other issues also to survive. You require a political power, you require an economic power, and you require more than that a diplomacy also. So having said that, what I can say is that what could be the measures which could be taken to really understand that what national security is all about. Essentially what you try to do is that you try to use diplomacy. If the diplomacy fails, then only the armed forces come into being. They only come into a picture if both the countries have failed into reaching to a solution amicably. That means the diplomacy has failed. But only fighting with an opponent, a country which is opposing you, or a country with whom you are not having good relations, is not all national security is. You got a threats which are of internal dynamics or internal threats in nature. You all know that what threats we are experiencing in this country, a threat from a terrorism, a threat from various other internal security problems also becomes an issue of a national security. At the same time, there are various other threats which are essentially not so-called militaristic in nature, but these are the threats which needs to be addressed by the government which is in power. You will have a major threat, what you and me are seeing today, that there are drought-like situations in one part of the country, while in Assam there are extensive floods which are taking place. So essentially, the challenges which are emerging out of natural disasters also become an issue which could be related to national security. Then there are far too many other issues also. You all are mature people, you know about it. So when I am talking of a national security, whatever I have spoken, I am just putting it into a diagrammatic fashion, that diplomacy is there, armed forces are there, civil defense organization is there essentially to address issues related to natural disasters. Then critical infrastructure, you all know what critical infrastructure and how important it is all about, your oil installations, your gas installations, so on and so forth. Then internal security problems, we all know how dangerous they are and how they can really affect the rubric of a national security. So when you see all these types of problems and all these types of challenges, at end of the day, what you require is information. Now what this information could be? It is a information, what people have been talking about, intelligence. That means we are requiring information in real time. Just now we heard a very simplistic but a very succinct example that what a real time information is all about. Then you require to communicate all this information, communication systems are required. So essentially when I am looking at a national security, I depend on all these three things. So when today I am talking of a cyber threat, essentially I should not say that cyber is the only threat to national security. Cyber is a threat to national security because we depend on cyber, because all your information gathering, all your intelligence analysis and all your communication, everything is depending on cyber, and that is why the challenge is coming up, because the opponent knows that this is where the countries right from diplomacy to armed forces to critical infrastructure management is depending on. So let me attack that particular element, and that is why the cyber threat is becoming very important. Cyber warfare can be defined. I am not getting into any sorts of definitions over here. Attacks on, say, to disable your websites, other networks, disrupt your essential services, steal or alter classified data. In similar format, I can say that cyber warfare is essentially for what? It could allow an opponent to gain economic gains. It is not necessary that you need to defeat a country only militarily. You can defeat a country by slow poison, by killing the economy of that country. So it can be used for various things. I will not get into the details of it. Even there is a concept of a cyber terrorism which is essentially emerging out, because we know that no other country is attacking you saying that we are attacking by using a method of a cyber. So essentially whatever attacks which are going to happen or will happen will not be overt in nature, but they will be covert in nature, and that is why people are talking more of a cyber terrorism than cyber security or a cyber warfare from a point of view the threat could be. Now again the issue is that this threat could come from an actor which is a country, or a country will support an actor that this is what the infrastructure is required to create a cyber attack or a destruction of a cyber infrastructure. You please go ahead and do it for me. You all know what internet is all about. It is about information, to cut the long story short. Now what happens is that this information is important. We just now heard that the overdose of information is problematic. But most importantly, if somebody can manage this information and feed you with a wrong information, it is a worst case scenario. And that is where the cyber threat, the cyber terrorism or a cyber warfare comes into being. Those who have power over internet are supposed to be guiding the future of the world. That is one way of thinking. I fully do not endorse this argument, but definitely it has got certain amount of logic into it. There are people who are saying that the present internet what we are witnessing is just internet 1.0. It is nothing. When internet 3.0 or internet 4.0 will come up, then only we will understand how critical the threats from a cyber terrorism or a cyber warfare could be. Internet is being perceived by few people, something like I other day heard a statement by somebody, I can live without water, but I can't live without email. So internet is taking over the psyche of all of us in that fashion. So opponent also is slowly realizing that this is where if I want to kill a country, I can go and attack. That is why internet is going to become a major source of contention in years to come. We all know that what happened in Mumbai was a war which was fought not only by the terrorists on ground, but they were commanded and controlled by somebody across few kilometers, across even an ocean. Now this all happened because of satellite phones and few other gadgets. So essentially a cyber threat is going to depend on this. modern day terrorism is not about a terrorist just standing on a roadside and killing somebody by using a AK-47. Modern day terrorism is first using all these devices to launch an attack, to plan an attack, and then only what we see on the roads, that there is a bomb blast which has taken place and few other things which have happened. But there is a huge amount of information passage, information gathering, or shifting the information, giving the wrong information, collecting the information. Various things are happening when a terrorist organization is operating, and modern day terrorism and modern day terrorist organizations are hell of a lot depending on cyber stuff. So, national security, in short, what I can say is that interconnected with cyber or internet. If you know the history, computers came into being because of a military requirement. So as internet also. It essentially came into being for the requirements of the armed forces. Subsequently, the technology got shifted into a civilian domain, and now it has overtaken the civilian domain. But at the same time, it is not the case that it is not a part and parcel of the armed forces infrastructure. Today, when the US Army moves all the way across the 7 seas, comes to Afghanistan, it is depending hugely on space and cyberspace assets. That is why even today's modern day warfare, the information which is being given out by using cyber means is extremely important. So from that point of view, internet becomes, or a cyber or your ITC technologies, everything becomes a national critical asset. Internet's military use, again, I am not saying that internet is going to allow you to win a war. Internet is something which what we call in a warfare a force multiplier. That means today I got a fighter aircraft which can go from one place to other in 45 minutes. But I got a Bowser which is up there into the air which can refuel that aircraft. That gives me an addition for that aircraft to stay in the air instead of 45 minutes for another 2 hours because of the possibility of a air-to-air refueling. So that becomes a force multiplier. In similar sense, internet is also being viewed by people as a force multiplier. Now dependency we all know, I am not getting into the details of it, right from banks to power grids to your hospitals, everything and anything is now connected with cyber stuff. So that is what the problem is all about. The US Armed Forces hugely are depending on GPS. Today suppose somebody creates some sort of a jamming in GPS, the US Armed Forces will not know how to move their forces. And it is not only the question of a US Armed Forces, even a common man on the ground, for some time in Western countries and slowly the trend is coming in our country also, that you are depending even for your car driving on a GPS system. So you are depending right from a soldier on the ground or soldier in air to a common person moving on the roads of Hyderabad or New Delhi is depending on either the things which are directly related to cyber or the gadgets like GPS which could be said indirectly related to cyber. So now we know that what sort of a threat is all about. So I will not get into the exact analysis of this threat, but only one point which I would like to make over here is that it is a bloodless warfare. Why people are not getting scared of it till now? Because it is a bloodless warfare. Why today's terrorist organizations are also not investing hugely into cyber if it can give them such good results? Because it is a bloodless warfare. You and me are not going to get impressed the way the impact will happen on our minds that a bomb blast has happened and 10 people got killed, 30 people got killed. When somebody says that Ministry of External Affairs computers are hacked, it is not going to make much of an impact. But slowly the impact will start coming up. Your entire railway network, your entire other networks are depending hugely on internet or depending hugely on cyber stuff. So when you create damages to these sorts of major networks, the problems are going to come, and that is the way the threat is being identified today. The threat is real. You all must be knowing that in a small state called Estonia, for 3 weeks there was significant amount of cyber attacks that entire country had come to a standstill. Our Ministry of External Affairs computers were attacked. There are various other government organizations whose computers have been very routinely attacked. The good part of Indian system is that our dependence in that sense, particularly the dependence of the government, is to depend on resources which are cyber based, is that your age old typewriter has been just removed and now there is a keyboard over there. That is the only difference which has happened. We are not linked that way in a big way, the way Western words are getting linked or already linked. But that thing is changing, and that thing is changing very fast. Today when a youngster comes to any office, before asking for where his chair and table is all about, he says, is there a Wi-Fi over here? So things are changing, and that's the way the government establishment is also going to get into lot of changes, and that's where the danger exists. We all know what happened in other social movements. So what I tried to say is that cyber is not only being used against a government in a very negative fashion. Even for good social movements, what happened in Egypt and other places, cyber has been used. Who are the threat posers? The interesting part is that there are far too many threat posers over here. If I am a person in uniform, I know for sure who is my enemy. But today anybody and everybody could become my enemy, because somebody can create a computer virus. Somebody other day was saying that if somebody can paint and say that that is a very artistic thing to do, designing a virus also is an artistic thing to do. So there are various arguments which could be given over here. Threat to internet, I will not dwell much on it. Only one thing that I can say is that you might be recollecting that LTT had submarines with them. A threat to internet may not come even directly. One can even go and disturb the underwater cable connections. The nature of a threat, I have already defined about it. I think I am running out of time. I will not spend much time on it. Other issue which one needs to address is internet freedom. Just few days back, you had a killing by CRPF. Now there have been challenges, counter claims and claims. It wouldn't have happened 10 years back. The society has changed. So society is challenging everything. So today a government of India or any other government for that matter cannot come up with huge rules and regulations as far as internet is concerned, and internet freedom is going to be one of the major issues. Internet freedom, I am all for that, but it has got certain other lacunas also. Power of internet, you all know. Internet and individual rights. Few people have started comparing internet even with human rights. Why I am saying all these examples when I am talking of internet censorship and other things is that because this is all going to boil down into an issue where it's not only an enemy which is going to fight with the state, it is the people from a same country are going to challenge the state that why you are going to curb our rights as far as internet is concerned. There are countries which are investing very deeply into all these things. China is putting their money in a big way. They have developed all their infrastructures. The way we got airports or the way we got a Air Force station or an army station, they got a cyber stations also which are there. State sponsor hacking, one has to really talk of various issues over here. Ethical hacking, how ethical things are. One thing which could be ethical to you may not be ethical to me. Is kill switch an option? Definitely not, but people are even thinking of solutions like that. What are the solutions? This is what I started in the beginning. Even though the problem is so huge, so big, but the solutions are still mundane, we will have to look for the solutions which I have displayed on the screen. Recently you must, I will just quote two cases before closing down. Recently you must have read in the newspapers that for $1,000, one university graduate student has successfully changed the track of a UAV. This was done as an experiment, but if somebody can do it as a student, one can really understand how difficult it's going to happen in years to come. In fact, now people are talking even in India that you can't only be a passive customer into this business. You need to be active into these things. So if somebody is attacking you, you should also develop an infrastructure to attack others. In conclusion, I will say that this is what the problem is. There are no hardcore solutions. At the same time, we just can't say that we have to live with it. That's not going to be an answer. The answer is to be sought not only by a national security apparatus. The answers have to be sought by everybody. Even a small company where how the pen drives have been functioning, from where the data is going, how we are keeping controls on management of a data, how we are keeping control on various other things which are related to cyber are going to play a huge role. This is where I rest my argument. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Ajey Lele, for an excellent, different presentation.
I would like to call upon our next speaker, Mr. Sarangapani, Deputy General Manager, NTPC, to give a presentation on securing distributed control systems, industry perspectives. Mr. Sarangapani, Deputy General Manager in Project Engineering, C&I, NTPC, with over 23 years of experience in power plant, C&I engineering. He has been involved in the engineering of numerous thermal power plants as well as factory testing of many DCS systems and simulators. I would invite him to have a presentation.
Thank you. Am I audible? First of all, I want to thank the organizers for providing me an opportunity for presenting my perspective, basically the industry perspective of securing DCS. Some percentage of my job is already done in the first speaker's presentation of sensitizing the issue of security. Mr. Lele has already sensitized in his part that how serious is this cyber threats which are basically facing our country. My presentation will be mostly concentrating on the control system part of it rather than the internet part, because here also it's very vulnerable, and unless some steps are taken in this direction, it will not be possible to protect this particular important industry also. My presentation agenda, of course the topic is very vast. I will try to cover as much as possible in this slot. My presentation will be talking of networking in distributed control system, the security threats, the distinction between the IT security, basically the cyber threats, the internet threats, and the process control domain security, and what are the components of a DCS security program, because many of the things we have done in our company, but many things, there are many issues which are open, which are still more job has to be done. So I will be talking about those. Then about standards also, what all the standards which are there in place of securing the DCS. If you see, the most important part in whatever presentations we had today from morning till evening, one very important part is the operational excellence. If you talk of operational excellence, if you talk of preventive maintenance, if you talk of decision support, most important part is the data from the real-time systems. And if you see the scenario in DCS, about 10-15 years back, the data we used to give only to maybe the head of the station or the head of the operation maintenance. No other person was giving the data, were getting the data in real time. It was all in the form of reports. I remember about 15-20 years, the station data was also going to the corporate level only in the form of reports, maybe in the Excel reports or maybe from the system itself. But they were never connected. But if you talk the scenario now, that everything, the data of your, this thing is connected to the IT LAN, and through the IT LAN, the corporate is connected. So the entire control system in one way is connected to the internet. The IT LAN has got internet, and the corporates have got internet. So the control system is no longer isolated. So it is connected to the corporate LAN. And the significant changes in control systems which has made it vulnerable is, one is the entry of Windows. About 15 years back, maybe more than that, all the control systems, they had proprietary protocols, proprietary operating systems, proprietary hardware. Now everything is changed to Windows. Your commercial operating system commercial off-the-shelf hardware. More or less the hardwares are all the same servers, workstations which are used in general purpose domain, open architecture, and also what I talked about, the connection of the control system right up to the boardroom. And these are the byproducts of such connection. You see, the virus, worms, Trojan horse, the denial of service attacks. Like I just want to, already some of the incidents have been covered. I just want to, my list is only covering the process control domain. These incidents are come out of process control domain. And I want to dwell upon this stuckness, it has hit the control system. There, the most important point I want to tell here is that the operators were not knowing that the pumps have operated, which is the most important thing, that the status of the pumps which are operated are not known to the operator. Up to this level, the manipulation on the control system has happened, which means the worm has gone into the engineer station, into the logic making station, where the logic is developed, the logic is modified. So that is important. Again, some of the internet security breaches, I mean the control system security breaches. Here I want to draw one very important thing, that when we talk of security, certain the computer emergency response team, the emphasis is always on the IT security. As it is also very important, the cyber threat security, but there is a lot of distinction between the process control security and the IT security. The most important differences I have summed up here. System response is of very much importance in process control, because process control, the response is very important. So if I say I have got a deep packet inspection, any device which is inspecting all the packets, it will add a amount of delay to the entire network, and that type of delay is not basically tolerated in a process control domain. So that's where the difference comes. Here one more thing, the impact it can cause is the safety of the equipment and the personnel. If a internet vulnerability can enter a engineer station, then you can imagine that it can affect anything. It can affect the basic protection of the equipments also. And very important thing is the skill set. Process control engineers, the DCS engineers, or the engineering people, senior engineering people like us, they are basically senior engineers. They are not an expert in IT field. So this, the skill set in IT security is quite high, whereas the skill set here in process control is still predominantly less than the IT security. And this is very important, because the kind of you know, the importance to be given and the steps to be taken depends on the skill set. And now we come to the most important part, the components of a DCS security program. Here all these components, they have to be fitted together to form a complete program. Any of these components, if it's missing, the system becomes vulnerable. The first part is the defense in depth architecture, policies, procedures, which are basically, when you talk of policies and procedures, it is not equipment, it is the human beings who are involved in that. They have to follow procedures, their attitudes, their habits are very important. Then we talk of enforcement. So whatever you do design, whatever procedures you follow, one has to keep on doing a check whether my system is protected enough. Then there is a crisis management, crisis management program. Any incident is happening, it has to be analyzed. It has to be logged, it has to be known what is the reason, and then the learnings from that incident are very important. And as I told, the skill set of the asset owner is most important. The DCS vendor, of course, but it is basically the asset owner's skill set which is very important in this case. And here I am talking of the defense in depth architecture which we have adopted in our company, and this has been implemented in all the DCS which we are engineering with various DCS suppliers, BHEL, Honeywell, Emerson, Invensys, ABB, Yokogawa, all of them have adopted this architecture based on our requirements. You see here, first important thing is that whatever data source for the IT LAN, it has to be taken from the, not directly from the DCS. It has to be from the other machine which is specifically assigned for this. That is placed in the DMZ zone, which is acting as a buffer